It's time to hear the story, make the connection, learn the lesson, and gain the wisdom. Are you ready? Let's get charged and be changed. The Sister Speak Brother Break Show. Conversations on grace, healing, and deliverance. This is Marcy Bush. Come on, let's journey together.
Just like, I'm good with just preaching every Sunday, doing my thing. But it's a whole nother weight of responsibility, like when you are the senior pastor of a church. Mm-hmm. And so I took it in myself, and I had a lot of prayer. He was like, pray about, some things, and we ended up falling out about the things I prayed.
Okay.
He didn't want to hear what things I prayed about. And so, I ended up becoming the senior pastor and making moves at this church that I was not prepared. I honestly was not prepared. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was thrown into it. And It was like, now that I look back on it, it was just like growing up, I was big for my age. So even in spirit, just being big for my age, I wasn't ready for that, but somebody thrust you in it because they see you developing, or they see you as being developed. Mm-hmm. And so I felt that's what that was like, looking back on it. And so, so I did it. Mm-hmm. And I, of course, just holding it. Like, my daughter laughed at me. She know if I'm holding the steering wheel with two hands that I'm nervous, like something. She's like, what's wrong? She started looking around. So there's me trying to hold in the road with two hands. And I did it for some time. And we had already started coming to New Beginnings. So that was like the most amazing part, because he stopped. My pastor stopped, so I stopped coming because he was my spiritual father. Okay. So I was like, I stopped coming because he stopped coming. But I never understood fully why he stopped coming. Mm-hmm. But I just stopped coming because he did. And then when he left me completely uncovered. Mm-hmm. And so like I said, because we have meetings like just regular meetings, not like meetings as a spiritual father would with their daughter, and giving me instructions in that way. But so I started coming back because I needed that. Mm-hmm. And I knew Bishop could do that. Like, I saw him do it for others, but I wasn't operating in that capacity yet when I was here originally. Right. So once he left, I was like, okay, I'm going back, and see what he can do for me. And like from there, I felt like it's where I really grew into the calling that I was walking in at the moment, because I wasn't supposed to be walking there, and I would have literally drowned. I would have died had I not come back and set up under Bishop Hezekiah Presley Jr. I'm so grateful that he is my spiritual father. So,
and what happened then? You came. You were pastoring, but what, like extra services, Bible studies, or whatever? Every
Bible study, minister class. Okay. His pastor teachings. I think he hadn't started back doing the teaching with the pastors yet. Okay. But every minister's class, Bible study, anytime I can get in a service, third Sunday, it didn't matter. Okay. I was definitely.
Because I think I remember seeing you third Sunday. I think I remember. And this one particular time, it seems like I remember you being there.
And then he was, it was so funny because when I came here the first time, I never forget the first experience I had with New Beginning. They didn't know that I was I was an ordained minister of the gospel. And so I sat up front, and it was like, well, you have to sit. And so they moved me, I want to say like 3 times.
Oh, Lord.
I got moved like 3 times.
And what's so funny is a lot of times that don't even happen. It's funny. Right. It's funny how even talking to people, I think there were certain things, because I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and one of the things that happened to her is like the enemy then tried to twist it, because it's like, I don't want you to get help. Let me see how I can mess this up. Let me see how I can taint what you're feeling.
Right.
So
that you won't come back here to get what you need. Because I was like, I've never seen this again in this church before. Right. But in that moment, it was just like, it's almost humiliating.
Why keep moving me?
Right, because I'm 6'1", so I don't like to get up and, I just feel like I have this big presence. So don't, like, once I sit down, I'm pretty much down until it's time to start shouting and stuff. I like to be like somewhere inconspicuous. And it was already like, okay, you in the front. Now you got to move right here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you feel like all eyes are on you when you're being moved around. And then now nobody knows what happened. Nobody really was paying me any attention. But it's just how you feel in the moment. So I am. So coming here, I definitely had to get every single morsel I could, because I was flailing. Like I was doggy paddling at that point. I wasn't swimming. Like it was like, okay, you gonna have to live. And when you are constantly giving and giving and giving, when you preaching and teaching, and then you're already feeling like this may be not it, but somebody kind of forced you into it. Right. It just felt like, okay, so I got to grab every little morsel I can from Bishop, and he really helped me through that part. And he was like, I'm not trying to tell you to close your church. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but whatever you decide to do, I'm here to help you. And I was like so grateful, like, because he just felt like, okay, this is my daddy. I can put my head on his shoulder, and he completely understands. And most of the time, Bishop understands from a place where you don't even have to say it. So I'd be just so, you are so right, Bishop. Like, you just want to just jump up and be like, wow, I was just thinking that. So yeah, I'm definitely, I think that's what it was. It was Fifth Sunday Fellowship. Okay. That we would come and bring our churches and come and sit down. So that's the thing that he did for the pastor. So that's, it was just like so much. And finding this place was just so profound for me.
And see, it's one thing I think about, because probably we are in the 20s of episodes, I think, and most of my guests have so far been from our church, with the exception of a couple. And I know, one lady's like, where do you find these people? How do you... Honey, because it's like everybody has a story, and everybody period has a story, but I find that a lot of the people here are more apt to tell their story, and I'm grateful, and I think, and so, inevitably they hear something about Bishop, because God has used this man.
That's exactly it.
To help transform our lives.
That's exactly.
And I'm so grateful.
So grateful.
So how did you get from Pastor Sarah to sitting in the pews with the rest of us?
Okay, so I had been contemplating the decision. I had talked to Bishop about it a couple times. I talked to him about it, and like I said, he was just that. He's like, just pat you on the back, not even like, but we talked, and he's like, whatever you decide, I'm here for you. Like, and so I never forget, one Sunday I came to him and I said, Bishop, I'm going to close my church. And he kind of chuckled like and he kind of chuckled, and he was like, I want to say it was a minister's class that I came to him and said it, and then he chuckled. And then that next Sunday, when I was actually in the pews, he was like, oh.
You weren't playing.
Right. He was like, oh, hold on. Now, you told me you was closing the church. I didn't know how soon you was closing. But yeah, so I talked to God about it, and, just having conversations, and I talked to my leadership at my church, and I talked to them, and then I talked to the congregation, and it was the last Sunday in November that I decided, and I was like, okay, this is it. We had a cleaning party.
The last Sunday in November, child, that was come right after Black Friday again, probably.
Probably, right? That would make sense, yeah. But so I was like, and so they were like, well, can you just have Bible study sometimes? We really don't want to just disconnect. And I was like, yeah, I was thinking about it, yeah. And it was so crazy, because even the guy who owned the building that we were renting from, he was an Indian guy, and it was like it was a storefront, and he was like, well, yeah, I have a space for you. And I guess maybe he was thinking I was leaving because it was a financial reason, but it wasn't financial. And he said, I have a space for you. It's a nice space, and it's going to be way less. And it was almost like, okay, Nah, you done God was like, nah. It was like it was almost like the enemy like presenting this opportunity to me that seemed,
I got an option for you.
Right, to just stay in this thing. And I was like, oh, well, if it's less expensive. And I was like, girl, money wasn't even the problem.
Okay.
And I'm over here like about to be confused or let him talk me into saying, but when I made that decision, and I can't, like, when I tell you, for my family, and I had some people, some members did come and didn't stay. And my dad had joined my church, him and his wife, and then they came and they stayed. So, so it's just been this, Did
you feel like you stopped gurgling, drowning?
I did. Like, that was like, it was like that waiting to exhale moment. It was that first Sunday here was like the waiting to exhale moment. It was like, whew. Okay. Now, like, because I mean, when you're a pastor, you're so responsible.
Child,
like
know.
The book.
Thank you, God.
And stops, and everything falls on you spiritually, financially. I mean, it's like the buck stops here. And so, and if you're not designed to do that, then that will kill you.
Oh yeah.
And you see people flailing in ministers that are not, that maybe were not called. Because what Bishop taught me is that that ministry is not always a platform and a microphone.
Right.
And that's when people say you have a calling on your life, that's exactly what they think you're supposed to have, a microphone and a platform. And that ain't it. That's just that, but that's not the box that ministry lives in.
Right.
It's so much bigger. And he expanded my mind to think of what ministry could be outside of that microphone and that platform.
Yes.
And so.
That's good. That's good. So your husband, did he come? He came as well. Because where was he with church?
And so that's funny. That's funny about him because,
First man,
right? But before he came first man, when we were at my home church, it was just so funny because, I'm a minister. I want my husband in church with me. You want your man, at church. You want to present your family a certain way, and he just was not interested. And so, so then when he did, I'm praying to God, I want my husband to start coming to church, and he come to church and he want to fight the pastor.
Oh Lord,
I'm like. Hello, scratch. Never mind, Lord.
He can stay at the house. He can go back to bed.
He was like, if he touched me one more time, what?
Merciful God.
I'm sorry, I'm hitting my microphone. But it was really touchy. Like, cause my husband was not one of the people you could just feed him anything and he gonna eat it, and you tell him that was a cake. No, you had to show him how you made the cake, what ingredients you used. Like, you had to really show this thing, like really paint the picture for him. And so when when we got the New Beginning, I was nervous because Bishop is not.
He's a manly man.
He's a manly man. So I was just like, oh God,
are they gonna clash?
Are they gonna clash? Because like and so and it was so amazing to see how he took immediately to Bishop. I was just like, another Excel moment, like. Like he really loved Bishop, and Bishop could answer the questions that he had been longing, like from childhood or like being a teenager in church, that he wanted answers to in Bishop. And they would go, men's retreats, and I was just so surprised that he even would go, because that just was never him. Like, to be around a bunch of guys or be around, especially guys that he didn't grow up with.
And see, that's so crazy, because that's all we know of him. As being around, like those of us who met him here, that's all we know of him, is being around the dudes. He was the ever-present, big brother.
And that was his evolution. And people would be like, thank you so much for letting your husband do it. I'm like, I can't stop. Like, for me, I felt like that was his ministry. He was like, help. And he would, I don't care what you were doing, where you were at, if he could help you, or if he couldn't do it, then he gonna find somebody that can. It's like never a no. It was always I can't do that, but let me figure out, such and such can do this, I know this person, or that. Like, that's who he was. And it was like, if I stifled that, or if I was like this jealous person, like, because I never forget, like, somebody called in the middle of the night for him to come change their tire.
Really?
He was like, hold on, I'm on the way. And he looked at me and I looked at him. I was like, okay. Go ahead, go change the tire. I mean, I'm grateful, and it was because he learned who he was from Bishop.
Yeah.
Like Bishop really helped him hone in on who he was created to be in this earth.
And I'm eternally grateful. I thank you and Sister Jenny so much, because when my daughter was out in Houston, Texas with a 2.5-month-old baby, well, I think I called him before that, because she had kind of said she wanted to come, but then she kind of backed out, and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. And then, it was time, and I called like, can you and Brother Cecil go get well, I think I asked him, and then he was like, let me talk to Brother Cecil, and so then I'm talking to both of them like, can y'all please go get my daughter and my grandson? And they came back here, and I still got the pictures of when they got to the house, that day. Well, they got here that night. I mean, and they went from Carolina to Houston, got them, and came right back. And the rest is history. And Daniel is your godson. My grandson is your godson. Right. And he loves it. And I'm so grateful. But I'm like, Henry didn't really know me from a can of paint. I mean, he knew me at church, but we ain't had no personal relationship.
And what's funny about all of that is I just remember him thinking that you didn't like him. He was like,
which is crazy.
I was like, Marcy don't like me. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I don't know why. She always looks so mean at me.
That's my daddy look.
Right. And so then when you came to him, like, he was so happy. And I was like, I told you he was like, you must have told her what. I was like, I didn't tell her what you said. I was like, I didn't tell her what you said, but he was like so honored to do that for you. And
I was so grateful.
And then it seems like when he met Daniel, like they instantly connected.
Because they talking about Daniel talked all the way from Houston. He was 2.5 months old.
He was 2.5 months old.
They said he talked all the way from Houston.
And he talked to Henry and Henry was like so elated. He was like, this baby cried one time, and that's because Ebony tried to give him a cold. He said Ebony didn't want to bother him to stop.
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, she tried to give him a cold bottle, and he was crying. And that was the only time he cried the entire trip. And so from that moment, if Ebony didn't make him the godfather, he would have took Daniel.
Yes, because that was what he did too. Mm-hmm. People just became his kids. Right. Y'all's kids.
Oh my gosh, I have so many kids.
Yes, yes.
I have so many kids because of him.
Y'all are a collective blessing. Mm-hmm. So y'all are here. Everything's thriving. You're who you are. Your kids are who they are. And y'all just feel like family. Mm-hmm. Like I've been at New Beginning for 24 years. And, there are some people who get so integrated who it's like, how long they been here? Because it's so natural. Yeah. It's such a fit, and that's what happened with y'all. And so then something happened that none of us were expecting.
Definitely.
And Henry, let's go there. I don't even know how you wanna. He left us.
He just transitioned. And that it's just like the strangest thing, and I know it's all God, and I trust him. I trust his plan and his way. But it's just like, wow, just one day to literally leave home happy. I talked to him during the day. He was having a great day, and to get the call later that day, maybe a few hours later, that Henry fell, and it was crazy because he was with one of his best friends from church. Mm-hmm. One of the closest people he was at church, and he was with him, and he called me, and he was calm. He said, Sarah, Henry fell, and he's not responding to me. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, he fell, and he's not responding to me. He said, but would you come? We're right around the corner from your job. Would you come and see if he'll respond to you? Mm. And I was like, well, did you call 911? And he was like, yeah, I called 911, but they're on the way. Mm-hmm. And he's like, they haven't made it yet. So to me, it felt all calm and all peaceful. So I left work, and they were like 6 minutes from my job. And when I got there, the ambulance was there working on him. And it just, all of it was very surreal. I was just like, how in the world, like, how do we go from just talking on the phone and everything was fine to he's literally laid out here in the middle of the ground. And so in that moment, I did what I knew to do. What I did, probably when I think about moments in my life, all I knew to do was praise. And so I was like, you know, just God. And I never forget, the lady from the ambulance came over. They came over to me. They was like, ma'am, we need you to be a little bit quieter because we can't hear. And I was like, I felt like I was a good little ways from them. But I was too loud because I was just doing what I got to talk to my father, like, because I don't know. And that's what the lady came. She said, when they had, because then I looked again and they had him on the stretcher, and she said, well, we're going to take, she said, we don't know if we hear breath sounds. She's like, we can't tell if we can hear anything. She said, but we're going to take him to the emergency room. I said, she don't know, but God, you know. And I don't even know how I got to the hospital. Like, I remember I saw Felicia, her car, because she was with, of course, Antonio, her husband. And so her car.
And Antonio's the one that Henry was with.
Right, Henry was with
when
Antonio when it happened. And so, and they were working. Henry had just started the job, working for FedEx. He had just started the job. And so I was like, I saw Felicia's car, and I just knew I needed to follow the ambulance. And then I don't even know how I lost the ambulance. And next thing I know, I saw the ambulance like way over there. And I was like, what? It was just like I was in a movie. And then I finally got to the hospital. And so for me, like I was in that moment where I'm just like, I'm flailing. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to think. And my best friend called me and I was like, I don't even know how to get to the hospital from here. Cause and it was around my lunch break. And so she always called me on my lunch break. And so I didn't know how to even, I was in Aiken. I was like, I don't even know how to get to the hospital. She was like, what's wrong? And I just blurted out, Henry died. Like I knew he was dead. Like I just felt it in my spirit. And so I was really like losing it. Having a conversation with her, and she was like, well, I'm gonna come to you. And I was like, I don't even know how to tell you where I'm at this point. Like I was out of it. And so like I said, I don't know how I got to the hospital, but when I got to the hospital, and I was still, my mind was racing, everything was going crazy, but you were there. And so seeing you, it kind of pulled me back. Like it was like, okay, you got to do this. Like you got stuff to do. Like, so it pulled me back. And I just, little things, you had a bottle of water. And I was like, okay, I needed that. That pulled me back to where I needed to be and hit my head space. And so shortly, we were in the waiting room, maybe like 10 minutes. And they called us back. And I knew for sure at that point, like they hadn't been, there's no way. And yeah, he was gone just like that. Like, and that whole gone in the moment, in the twinkling in the eye, like that thing became so real to me in that moment. I'm like, I mean, people say you're strong, but when I tell you strength is not a thing when you're going through something like that. You have people that prop you up, that you can lean on, that you can. Because sometimes I felt like I was like this, almost like a puppet. Because I never forget, I was on your couch and we were doing obituary.
Mercy,
we were
Lord.
doing obituary. Oh my God. And when I tell you, I was like, I just remember I couldn't stay awake.
You could not.
But before I couldn't sleep. So then it was like, okay, I'm in peace. Like I got to the place, it was like this place of peace. And it was like, I could not keep my eyes open.
For nothing.
I gotta do this obituary. Like it was just like the importance of the moment, but it was just like I had peace. And honestly, that Sunday, he died on the Thursday. That Sunday, after he passed away, I remember getting up talking to God. I was like, because everything was just so chaotic. And my girls didn't want to be home, so my house was completely empty. It was just like everything went from a house full of people, because they would have their friends over. Everybody wanted to hang out with Henry, his friends, you know. So I went from a house full of people to just me, and like that. And so I remember talking to God that Sunday morning, and I was like, God, I don't want to be selfish. I know other people are going through things too, but I need a word that I know is specifically for me. You got to say something to me today. Like, I just knew that. And Bishop did the eulogy that Sunday.
Yes, he did.
And I didn't even have to, after that, I didn't have to have a funeral. Like, I felt like that was it. This is all I need.
And that may sound crazy to people. What you mean, Bishop had a eulogy?
Right? He literally preached, like he said it in his message, like this, like, I'm doing this for the church, because we got to be helpful when people actually come to the funeral. But in that moment, it was everything I needed.
Yes.
And he said, from every song that was sung by the choir, the praise team first, then the choir, then Bishop getting up, it was everything. So for me, like, my strength came from just leaning on God first, and then having this amazing support system that just, I don't think I can even ever express, like, how amazing it was to feel that love around you, even though you're going through the worst time of your life, but people who say, hey, look, I got your back.
Right.
What you need. Right. And then sometimes it wasn't even, I couldn't articulate what I needed, because even with the programs, I couldn't even articulate that, but you knew this is, and you would tell, like, Marcy would call me and say, did you do this? Like, and so people like, well, I tried to help you. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, because it wasn't that, what can I do for you type thing. And that's what people, and I know people mean well. So I'm grateful when people come and say, what do you need? But it's a whole different type of help when somebody come and say, you need to do this. You need to do, because when you're going through the work, like stuff like that mentally, like I probably had checked out. Like, maybe that was one of my mental checkout moments. But you brought me back every time, like, okay, Sarah, you haven't did this. You didn't send me this. You didn't do. And so even as far as going to the funeral home, and I needed the help. I'm grateful to God, and that's one of the things I know, like, okay, when I closed, like, had I not closed my church, I honestly don't believe I would have lived through that.
Right.
Like,
Thanks so much for joining us today. If you've been blessed by today's show, feel free to let us know. And if you'd like to sow into this ministry, become a sponsor, or contact us, you can reach us at 803-221-0169. Or you can email us at the ssbbshow@gmail.com. Let's continue this journey together. Missed any of our past episodes? Catch up on past shows on my YouTube channel at Marcy Bush, MarceyBush. And be sure to subscribe so you won't miss any future episodes.